Israel carried out airstrikes in Gaza overnight in response to rockets fired by Palestinian militants.
Militants had warned of a response following a deadly Israeli army raid in the occupied West Bank earlier this week. Palestinian health officials say the fighting at a refugee camp yesterday killed at least 10 people, including at least 7 militants. The escalation comes as CIA Director Bill Burns visits the region. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected there next week.
CBS News contributor Robert Berger is in Jerusalem. Robert, thank you for joining us. Can you just tell us what is happening on the ground right now?
I would describe it as quiet but tense after a new round of violence overnight. The Islamic Jihad group fired several rockets at Israel from Gaza, causing no injuries or damage, and Israel responded with a couple of airstrikes targeting Palestinian training camps and a rocket factory. But both the airstrikes and the rocket fire were really quite limited, and that seems to signal that neither side is looking for an escalation that could erupt into another Gaza war.
So, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a message this morning, Robert, as I'm sure you're aware, for International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And in it, he vowed as prime minister to prevent those who, quote, call for our destruction from accomplishing a second Holocaust. Was he sending a message to the Palestinian authorities? What's your take on that message? Obviously, we know that any Israeli prime minister is going to have a message along those lines on a day like today, a solemn day like today.
Well, I think this is more of a message to Iran than it is to the Palestinians. Israel is extremely alarmed about Iran's enrichment of uranium and fears that Iran is actually getting closer to building a nuclear bomb. And Israel sees that as a threat to its existence. And that's why you have Netanyahu's reference to a second Holocaust. As far as the new government, when Netanyahu took office just a few weeks ago, he said his top priority is to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. And since then, Israeli officials have said publicly that all options are on the table, including the military one, including, in other words, a possible preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear facilities.
Robert, as you know, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to travel to the region this weekend. What are you expecting to see from that?
The trip was actually planned before the current crisis and was originally meant to get acquainted with the new Israeli government, but it's obviously taken on a new sense of urgency now in the wake of the latest violence. I think Blinken's main task right now is going to be to try to restore security cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinians broke that off yesterday in protest over that deadly West Bank raid. And so Blinken wants to restore that security cooperation, and to sweeten the cup, the State Department says that he will reiterate U.S. support for a Palestinian state. And he'll also push Israel for some concessions to calm the situation by avoiding provocative steps such as Jewish settlement expansion or changing the status quo at the Mosque of Al-Aqsa or Temple Mount.
All right, a lot to follow this weekend. Robert Berger in Jerusalem for us. Thank you.
Thank you.